Christopher Nolan's Inception is more than just a movie, because what if I told you the biggest mystery isn't the ending, but how Nolan planted the idea of Inception into Hollywood years before it was even made? The spinning top wobbles, the screen cuts to black, and Christopher Nolan leaves us questioning reality. But Inception is much more than its ambiguous ending. It's a cinematic masterpiece, layered with secrets, groundbreaking effects, and meticulous storytelling. The camera pans to his spinning totem. The top doesn't stop spinning, or does it? Nolan deliberately cuts to black, leaving us to wonder, is Cobb home, or still dreaming? Nolan himself teased audiences, saying, "I've been asked this question more than anything else, but what's funny is people really expect me to answer it. The ambiguity is intentional. It's about your interpretation, not his answer." The numbers that Fisher gives to Cobb when he asks for the safe combination, 528491, come up time and time again. The two rooms the team are in the hotel are 528 and 491. And, as a hex number, 528491 produces a cyan-like color that is used throughout the film too. Coincidence? Not in Nolan's world. The hospital we see on Dream Level 3 wasn't just CGI. They built the hospital as a real set on an Alberta mountainside in Canada, and also as a 20-foot scale model. And the moment the hospital is destroyed, Nolan blew up the set, but wasn't happy with how it looked. So, he blew up the miniature, and Nolan still wasn't happy with how it looked. So they built an entirely new 20-foot model, just so they could blow it up. And Nolan was happy with the third attempt. DiCaprio didn't just play Cobb, he helped rewrite him. He played a major role in shaping the script and improving the character. Nolan said, "Leo made some extraordinary contributions to the script and really challenged us to make the script clear and also to follow its logic. The work he did on his character made the movie less of a puzzle and more of a story of a character that audiences could relate to." Because of DiCaprio's suggestions, Nolan upped the personal drama stakes that surround Cobb around his children and wanting to get back home. Nolan's films rely on practical effects over digital ones. While most blockbusters use over 2,000 CGI shots, Inception had only 500. Nolan said, "It was very important to me that we do as much as possible in camera, and then use technology to enhance that. I think an audience pays much more attention and feels much more involved with that." Take the revolving hallway fight, for example. The fight that takes place in the revolving hotel corridor featuring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He took a huge amount of work to pull off. Filmed in 2 enormous airship sheds in Bedfordshire, the revolving set was originally going to be 40 feet long, but as the scene became more and more elaborate, Nolan decided to make it 100 feet long. The set they built rotated a full 360 degrees, and they could control the direction it rotated and how fast it rotated. Nolan didn't want any digital effects if possible, so even the lights were real and rigged up with electricity. Then, a second set was created. This new set was identical to the first in every way, except the corridor was vertical. So, in this vertical set, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and the stuntmen were fighting, and were suspended from pulleys about 40 feet in the air. To create the look of weightlessness, the moments the actors are fighting and moving up the walls and around the ceiling is all shot on the revolving set, and the times where they're weightless, or appear to be weightless, is on the second vertical set. Nolan then cut the sequence between shots from both sets, which is why the points of gravity seem to change from one second to the next, and why it's impossible to make sense of it. In Inception, Christopher Nolan weaves multiple themes: memories, regret, and the struggle to move on. These ideas are perfectly encapsulated in Edith Piaf's 1960 classic, Non, je ne regrette rien, which plays a significant role in the film. The choice wasn't arbitrary. The song resonates deeply with the narrative's emotional core. But here's a fascinating touch. Non, je ne regrette rien runs precisely 2 minutes and 28 seconds, while Inception clocks in at 2 hours and 28 minutes. Whether Nolan meticulously edited the film to mirror the song's length, or it's merely a coincidence, remains uncertain. However, this subtle alignment undeniably adds another layer to Nolan's reputation for precision and attention to detail. Nolan actually almost removed the song from the movie, after he had some doubts about how it would fit, but he was convinced to keep it by legendary composer Hans Zimmer. Knowing that Nolan was using the song, and knowing that time moves at different speeds, depending on which dream level we're in, Zimmer based various pieces of music in Inception on how Non, je ne regrette rien sounds played at slower speeds. casting Dom Cobb, Inception's lead character, writer-director Christopher Nolan and producer Emma Thomas, had a clear vision. Leonardo DiCaprio was their one and only choice. While many filmmakers typically prepare backup options, for Nolan, it was DiCaprio or nothing. However, some accounts suggest that Nolan may have briefly considered Brad Pitt and Will Smith, but the truth remains, DiCaprio's involvement was central to the film's development. Both fantastic actors, but luckily, Leo said yes, and the rest is history. DiCaprio's acceptance of the role sparked rumors of him joining Nolan's third Batman movie as the Riddler, a role that never materialized, but in Inception, his presence became a cornerstone of the cast. With Leonardo DiCaprio agreeing to play Cobb, Nolan structured the rest of the team around him. He deliberately didn't cast any member of Cobb's team with an actor older than DiCaprio. Why? To make sure Cobb didn't look too young as the team's leader. Of course, what's a Nolan movie without Michael Caine? This time, he plays Cobb's father-in-law, Professor Stephen Miles. Fun fact, the scene between Cobb and Miles was shot at the Bartlett School of Architecture at University College London. That's not just a random location. It's where Nolan studied and met Emma Thomas, his wife and producing partner. Christopher Nolan is known for his hands-on approach, and Inception was no exception. Unlike most big-budget films that rely on a second unit to handle smaller, less critical shots, like B-roll or scenes meant for CGI, Nolan decided not to go that route. He didn't hire a second unit for Inception, he wanted to shoot it all. Every single shot in Inception was personally directed by Nolan, alongside his trusted cinematographer, Wally Pfister. This isn't the first time Nolan's taken this approach. He made the same call during The Dark Knight. Why? Because he's all about precision. Nolan has a very specific vision for his films, and he's not one to hand off even the simplest shots to someone else. In this scene, where Arthur introduces Ariadne to the concept of paradoxes, is one of Inception's most iconic moments. The infinite staircase he demonstrates is based on the Penrose steps, a famous optical illusion created by Dutch artist M.C. Escher in the 1960s. Obviously, it's impossible to build an infinite staircase in the real world, so they had to conceive and construct something from scratch that, when shot from a specific angle, created that illusion. Wally Pfister, Nolan's trusted cinematographer, was instrumental in designing this illusion. He explained the process, saying, "It had to be mathematically perfect, a particular lens at a particular height and distance, and the camera had to drop in a particular way to hide the trickery." In other words, it wasn't just about building a clever set, it was about capturing it with absolute precision to sell the illusion to the audience. Level 1 in Inception's dream sequence is the rainy city street where chaos unfolds, including a runaway train smashing through traffic. To create this, Nolan didn't rely on CGI. Instead, he had a real train chassis mounted onto the engine of a tractor trailer, letting it barrel through parked cars in a practical stunt. And here's a fun detail you might have missed. The license plates on the cars all display the state motto, the alternate state, a clever nod to the dream world's alternate reality. Classic Nolan, packing meaning into every detail. Joseph Gordon-Levitt went all out for the iconic rotating hallway fight in Inception. With no formal stunt experience, he trained for 12 weeks beforehand and ended up performing almost all of his own stunts. In fact, his stuntman was only used for one shot, about a single second of screen time. Filming wasn't easy. Gordon-Levitt described it as the most pain I've ever been in on a movie set. To stay focused amidst the dizzying chaos of the rotating set, he would hum Bach in his head, keeping himself in rhythm with the movement. Studios often worry about actors performing their own stunts, especially when they're as intense as these. But Gordon-Levitt's dedication clearly paid off, making the sequence one of the most memorable in the film. The characters' names are also noteworthy for a reason. Cobb's first name is Dom, and his main objective is to get home. In many Slavic languages, Polish, Russian, Serbian, Croatian, etc., Dom means home. A neat little touch, right? Yusuf, played by Dilip Rao, is the chemist who provides Cobb with the sedative he needs. The name Yusuf is the Arabic version of Joseph. In the Bible, Joseph is the one who interprets people's dreams. Kind of fitting, don't you think? Mal, Cobb's wife, comes from the French word malheur, which means unhappiness, a very fitting name considering her role in Cobb's mind. Now, here's something even more interesting. If you take the first letters of the main characters' names, Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Mal, and Saito. They spell Dreams. Add Peter, Ariadne, and Yusuf to the mix, and you get Dreams Pay, which feels like an almost perfect fit for a mind thief. But here's the thing. Could this all be a coincidence? Or do we have yet another piece of evidence that Nolan has crafted every detail with meticulous care? Fans can debate it, but one thing's for sure, whether it's intentional or just a happy accident, it definitely adds another layer of intrigue to the film. When creating Cobb's team and the roles they play, Nolan relied on the creative team he knows, the filmmaking crew. So, the roles each character plays within the team reflects the roles you would have within a movie-making team. Cobb is the director, the visionary with the grand plan. He steers the project and ensures everything aligns with his creative vision. Arthur is the producer. As the point man, he does all the groundwork, planning, research, and pulling everything together to ensure the team can execute Cobb's plans smoothly. Ariadne is the production designer. As the architect, she builds the world, the sets where everything unfolds, creating the visual foundation for the story. Eames is the actor. As the forger, he takes on different roles and personas, literally acting out different characters to manipulate perceptions and outcomes. Saito is the studio, the financier who funds the operation, and, ultimately, calls the shots, much like a studio head overseeing a production. And Fisher, played by Cillian Murphy, represents the audience. The entire dream is crafted to influence his emotions and decisions, much like a film is created to evoke reactions from its viewers. In this way, Inception is not just about dreams within dreams, it's a meta-commentary on the filmmaking process itself. Believe it or not, Christopher Nolan actually pitched the idea of Inception to Warner Brothers way back after his third film, Insomnia, in 2002. They were immediately on board and loved the concept, even giving him the green light, based on just an 80-page treatment. But Nolan wasn't rushing to finish the script just yet. He wanted to ensure he had full creative control, so he promised them a finished script in a couple of months. But then something big happened. Nolan was offered Batman Begins, the film that would change his career. So, the Inception script had to take a back seat. Between projects like The Prestige and The Dark Knight, Nolan kept returning to Inception whenever he had a moment. Finally, in 2009, after the massive success of The Dark Knight, Nolan delivered the finished script to Warner Brothers, and they greenlit the project immediately without hesitation. As we wrap up this video, let me quickly take you into another cinematic universe that rewrote the rules of storytelling: Harry Potter. If you thought the dream mechanics in Inception were complex, wait until you uncover the behind-the-scenes secrets of how the wizarding world came to life. Join me for an in-depth breakdown of the magical journey from page to screen, revealing how Harry Potter became the cinematic phenomenon we know today. Did you catch the way we unfolded Nolan's timeline backward? What other films do you think could work with a similar approach? Sorry for taking you into the past, but let me bring you back to the present and leave you there.